If you have to wear a mask when you go to work, then inherently there is dishonor in the work that you're doing.
Nobody who looks at this with open eyes can think this was justifiable.
And
I'm
nobody
sorry,
is
that's just the
celebrating this.
truth. Like, we should just be
Kills.
honest about this.
Yeah, it's an ugly situation on both sides, right? You have a lady who's impeding a federal law enforcement investigation. She shouldn't be in the middle of the road. And then if you watch the body cam footage from the ICE officer, he did get hit.
They are allowed to enforce immigration laws. What they are not allowed to is to impose a police state with attitudes and long guns. When did you see?
If you want to know who's at fault for that, it's the.
No, Nick Shirley, the YouTuber that exposed so much fraud in Minnesota, a lot of it was already known, but he really put it. He really put a national spotlight on this story, and a lot of people on the right are praising him about that, and people on the left are criticizing him about that. But he was on with Piers Morgan, and really, I felt like just destroyed their liberal panel that they had on there to counter him. And I thought the young guy did a much better job talking, explaining his point, keeping his cool, not letting his emotions get involved, and really just showed these people how they should present themselves on television compared to how they do. So let's take a look at Nick Shirley's appearance on Piers Morgan's show. If you guys enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like, leave a comment, and check out some of our other videos. So let's get into it.
Many millions of people around the world have now seen the distressing footage of an ICE agent fatally opening fire on 37-year-old Renee Good. As every new detail emerges, the wildly opposing views on what happened have become only further entrenched. Nick Shirley, the YouTuber, whose work on alleged Somali fraud has prompted the federal investigation. We've all had a chance to watch this from multiple angles now for the last week. What is your view about what happened?
Yeah, it's super sad. And I've gone to these protests, I've talked to these people, and she put herself in a position where the officer was duty bound to protect himself as well. The officer obviously doesn't want to feel like his life's in threat, and she shouldn't be putting the officer's life in threat. And do I think he should have shot her? I don't know. I'm not in the position of the officer, but like I said, he's duty bound to protect himself, and she shouldn't have put herself in that position. She knew what she was doing. She was impeding a federal law enforcement investigation.
Okay, so a very fair assessment by Nick Shirley, giving the facts that he saw watching the videos that led him to his position. And he explains himself calmly and rationally.
But do you actually think she was trying to run him down?
I do. If you watch the video, she was obviously aiming towards there, and then there's even a moment before where she hit the gas and the tire didn't catch tread. Who knows what would have happened if the tires did catch tread and she was able to do it, and her girlfriend was saying, "Drive, baby, drive."
But that could be just to get away rather than run anybody over.
Could be.
Yeah, that could be. But if you watch the video, her tires are aimed at the officer, and she hit the gas, and luckily her tread did not catch beforehand as well.
Now, I happen to agree with Nick Shirley here. I feel like the woman should not have put herself in the position to endanger herself, and also endanger the ICE officers and everyone around there. So I agree with that position. Now, you will notice a different reaction from the liberals on the panel and how they express their opinions.
Everybody involved made mistakes, but that ultimately that woman should not have been shot dead. And no one can persuade me otherwise. I do not believe the videos collectively showed her deliberately trying to run anybody over. And in fact, her demeanor prior to this happening a few seconds earlier is the converse of being confrontational.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I don't know what Nick's looking at, if he thought that she was aiming for him. I agree with you, Piers. I think everybody made a mistake in this situation, but only one person got executed. And so I think we should look into why that was and what happened there, and just be honest about what happened.
Be honest. She was executed.
He greeted,
being honest.
The officer, Jonathan Ross, had seen her, as you mentioned, 20 seconds before he shot her. And she said to him, "That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you." She was smiling. He could see into the car. There's a dog in the back seat. There are children's toys in the passenger seat of the car. And then he walks around to the front. She's backing up, and as she starts to move away, this car's moving like 2 miles an hour. It's not moving any faster than any car does in any grocery store parking lot anywhere in America. The wheel is clearly pointing away, moving away for him. And then he shoots her, not just one time, but then he shoots her a second time and a third time through the side window.
As
like when he fires the third shot, he's
vehicle.
completely to the side of the car. He's not in any danger at all. And so I just don't see how anybody could see this and think that this person like legitimately felt like his life was in danger. I'd also note that he has a couple colleagues that are standing there. None of them pulled their weapon. None of them seemed to think his life was in danger. And then after the car with the dead driver goes away, he walks to it easily and he calls her a bitch. So I just look. I think this is a very clear situation. I think everybody trying to make this complicated or trying to say she tried to kill him, they either are just intentionally spinning for the administration because they're hacks, or like maybe they're just very easily scared individuals who I don't know how you would get through life by thinking that somebody in that situation was going to kill themselves. Was in danger of.
They keep leaving out the fact that he was struck by her vehicle. Whether she was fleeing or trying to run him over intentionally shouldn't matter because they were trying to detain her, so she shouldn't be fleeing. But bottom line, she struck him with her vehicle.
Let me bring in Will Chairman, who says nonsense. Why do you say that?
Saying that people are scared when they're acting in lawful self-defense is offensive. Basically, every way that Tim characterized that was just unbelievably uncharitable to the police officer who clearly shot in self-defense. He was directly in front of the vehicle when Miss Good hit the accelerator. Now, maybe she was going to continue turning, but maybe she wasn't. He was 2 feet in front of it. And that woman had justified a lawful order to be detained. And that's not to say that she deserved to be shot. This execution thing is so frivolous because it's not about her being given punishment for her actions. It's about her creating the scenario in which another person felt a reasonable fear of deadly injury.
You and I will
have an exchange.
You and I had an exchange on X about whether this constitutes domestic terrorism. I think that's such a ridiculous phrase to use about what we've all witnessed with our own eyes here.
She does fit the description of an act of domestic terrorism. It doesn't have to be a catastrophic event, but if she fits the description by her actions, then it's okay to label her a domestic terrorist. But from what I understand, what she did fits into a description of a type of domestic terrorism. You can argue about that, but in the end, it's going to be a yes or no question, and I believe that the answer is yes. It does fit into a definition of domestic terrorism.
He's ignored his training, which is that ICE officers should not be standing in front of a car in that situation, nor should they fire at a moving vehicle. That's what they're trained not to do.
That last part is certainly incorrect. When you are allowed to fire at a moving vehicle in self-defense or in defense of others.
Right. If you genuinely think your life is in danger, right? Now the question. So the question is.
That's not.
I'm sorry. How does firing at a moving vehicle make you more safe? This doesn't even make sense.
Well, it makes total sense because she's still behind the wheel of the vehicle that just struck an officer, and they don't know what she's going to do next with that vehicle. So at this point in the video, let's just go completely off the rails with Geraldo Rivera.
Everybody's ignoring the original sin, which was to use a brigade-sized deployment of paramilitary forces to presumably or reportedly, or the pretense was to go after the worst of the criminal aliens. Did that happen? Absolutely not. What happened instead? You had this deployment of these masked desperados, 2,000 strong, descending on the community with attitude. There was hostility on both sides from the get-go.
Attitude.
And what in the world are paramilitary forces doing enforcing immigration law to begin
Fending
with?
Off these protesters.
The southern border, Piers, as you pointed out correctly, has been sealed now for months. There's zero influx of undocumented immigrants. So if the
great.
supply of the problem has been cut off, isn't it time now for President Trump to use some common sense and some compassion, for God's sakes?
First, I mean, is there some list of federal laws that federal authorities are not allowed to enforce? You should probably inform them of that. I think that's a little bit ridiculous. And
What
second,
are
if
you
we're going to go
talking
to
about?
Yeah, do we
You're
have
talking
immigration
nonsense.
law or not?
You're talking nonsense.
you're
Talk
basically saying
radio
the federal government's
nonsense.
not allowed to enforce immigration law because you actually need to bring in large numbers of
They
people
are
to
allowed
detain
to
dangerous
enforce
aliens.
immigration laws. What they are not allowed to is to impose a police state with attitudes and long guns. When did you
If you
see
wanna know
mass
who's at
cops?
fault for
Hold on a
that, it's
second.
the
When did
sanctuary
you see mass
jurisdictions.
cops? I don't know how much police work you've done. I've done a lot for the last over 50 years. You don't bring masked, heavily armed SWAT team, effectively SWAT team or Delta Force,
If you
kind
need
of
them, you do.
combatants into a situation where the problem is undocumented immigration. If that's the problem, you go and you pursue the normal, ordinary, reasonable, prudent ways
They're not
of
allowing them to
dealing
do that.
with the social problem. It's immigration. As I said, the supply has been cut off of immigrants. Now's the time. What about the dreamers, the kids brought here at an early age who've been here and committed no crime? Isn't
We're
it
far
time for
afield
them
now.
to get?
Your,
I think
your
that
specific
you're not
point, I
far
want to answer
afield.
your two
Isn't the
specific
issue
points very quickly.
undocumented immigration? Isn't that what you're talking about? Illegal aliens, so-called? Isn't
You
that
say
what
they
we're
can't be
talking about?
masked? They're masked because the radical left and Antifa
Cops
dogs
are never masked. State troopers
And
are
if
never
you're
masked.
mad about
Marshals
the
are never
policy question, can I just make
Different
this point?
job
If you're
than
mad
the
about the
state
policy
troopers.
problem, which is the fact that the administration needs to send in militarized forces that are ready for responses, that's because Minnesota has sanctuary state policies and doesn't cooperate with detaining
That's right.
criminal aliens. In other states, they don't need to send in BORTAC
What's
to
the-
detain
what's the
people
rush?
Because
They did it here in
they're
New
able to
Orleans,
detain them
Will.
safely at the
Supply is cut
courthouse.
off.
It's the Minnesota
If the
state
supply
authorities
is
that are
cut
responsible
off,
for creating dangerous situations like the one that happened in Minneapolis.
An awful, awful mistake by those officers who aggressively sought to confront, as you Piers have clearly laid out. The woman in that car had presented no threatening image. Look at the car. That's the weapon that makes her a domestic terrorist. That car moving at 2 miles an hour, then
can't
5
accept
miles
it.
an hour. The wheels clearly turn to the right.
Could have seriously
Come on,
injured
I'm
somebody with that
sick of
vehicle.
the excuses. It's one thing to have ideology and be as conservative as you want to be, but don't make up a situation with it fails right there. When you say domestic terrorist,
Geraldo
I
can't
covered
handle
Timothy
it.
McVeigh, 1995, Oklahoma City. You want to see a domestic terrorist? He killed 168 American men, women, and children. That's a domestic terrorist, or the Unabomber.
Yeah,
You notice all the liberals are yelling.
That's,
or
how,
Luigi
that's how
Mangione,
I felt.
or
I
any
felt
you name them.
So a domestic terrorist, I would imagine acts of domestic terrorism come in all sizes. So just because Timothy McVeigh was a domestic terrorist doesn't mean that someone like her can't be, because she's a mom and she has toys in the back seat. That has nothing to do with anything. They're judging her actions.
Why can't we all just be honest about what we've watched?
Yeah, it's an ugly situation on both sides, right? You have a lady who's impeding a federal law enforcement investigation. She shouldn't be in the middle of the road.
True.
And then if you watch the body cam footage from the ICE officer, he did get hit. And that same
True.
officer had been dragged 300 feet beforehand just a few months ago. And so who of us is to say whether or not we felt like his life was at threat? Maybe he felt like his life was at threat, and therefore that's why he shot. And why is that lady impeding a federal law investigation in front? And
Responding with
has her car
emotion.
stopped while they're doing a targeted
Calm.
ICE raid?
Giving
And
his
so
opinion.
there obviously there's wrongs on both sides, but you can't justify. No one wants to see a woman get killed, but you can't also say, well, that officer was in the wrong because maybe he did think that his life was at threat. And when we watch the video, it's instantaneously, it's within a few seconds.
Look, people are on the right. A lot of
Split-second
folks are
decision.
praising Nick for just honesty in journalism when they felt that there was not honest things were being said about the daycares. Can we just be honest about this? Like, there is no way this person's life was at risk. The third shot,
That's
no one will
absurd.
no
That
one
is
will address
That's your
this.
opinion.
The third shot
got
that he
hit.
shoots, the third shot, he is to the side of the car. He shoots her through the driver's side window. The car has already passed
As
him.
he's being struck
And then he
by
calls
her
her
vehicle.
like this guy's life
I
is
would
not
if I
a
got
threat.
hit
And
by
let me
a
tell you,
car.
you're trying to make
Jeez.
this, and others they.
He's directly in front of the car, 2 feet in front of the car.
And she's
When
barely
you make it
moving.
to a grocery store parking lot, Will, how do you get out of Walmart without shooting somebody? I'm hoping you're not carrying a weapon.
If you have to wear a mask when you go to work, then inherently there is dishonor in the work that you're doing. There's a reason
That
why
is a
no
ridiculous
law
statement.
enforcement, absolutely not, in the United States of America wear masks. But for
He knows why
ICE
they have to
agents,
wear masks.
not even everybody in
He's
Customs
being
and
disingenuous.
Border Patrol wear masks. It is specifically for this population. Why is that? We have to ask ourselves, why is it that
For
unique
their own safety,
in all
they
of
have
the
no choice.
hundreds of thousands of law enforcement officers, this cadre is mask wearing. They said they were going after the worst of the worst, and instead they're going after Rosa, the baker, or Pablo, the snow shoveler. It is a cop-out. I call on the president to end it. Stop sending military units to enforce this specific law.
Rosa and I think it was Pablo, if they're in the country illegally, they need to go out. Period. So what does it matter if ICE is looking for them in particular or they're looking for the worst of the worst? Look for them all. Get them all. Because you're either in the country legally or you're in the country illegally. And some people, they don't want to just be honest. People like Geraldo, they're okay with illegal immigration. They're okay with open borders. And that's the whole thing. Most Americans are against that, but some people are okay with that. So it doesn't matter what Rosa and Pablo's job is or what their criminal record is. If they're in the country illegally, it's okay with me for ICE to go look for them. Or if ICE happens to catch them up in their activities trying to find gang members and people with orders of removal, that's okay too. But if they want to go out and look for them specifically, just because of the fact they're in the country illegally, what is wrong with that? Is that not our law? Following our law and enforcing our law? I just can't agree with them on that one.
Stop stopping Latinos on the street because they happen to be brown and there's a probability or possibility that they're here without proper documentation. Sort out a chaotic
Are all those
system
emotions
and make it
getting out of
fair.
control now?
I just think that what happened in Minneapolis was an accident waiting to happen. I just wanted to quickly add parenthetically that I congratulate the young journalist who exposed the fraud in the Somali community in the Twin Cities. I thought it was really it was gutsy, ballsy, street reporting. I'd like to think that that's the kind of stuff that I was doing in the 70s
Yeah.
and 80s and 90s.
That's
Thank
what
you,
I felt.
But
He's a young Geraldo.
A good was done.
So you guys can see the difference here when Nick Shirley is speaking and giving his opinions. He's got his emotions under control, and he's speaking with facts of what happened that day or what he perceives to be factual, which is how he forms his opinion that he's sharing with the audience. The liberals on the panel, like Geraldo and this other guy, their emotions are sky high. They're raising their voice, and they're basically saying, you must agree with me. There's no, they're not open for discussion or difference of opinion. Their opinion is the fact, and that's it. They don't even want you to have an opinion. But I thought Nick Shirley did a very good job, keeping his calm through the whole interview. He didn't interrupt anybody. He didn't talk down to anybody, and he didn't raise his voice to anybody. And that's how a lot of these people that come on these shows, they need to learn to behave a little bit better and have a little bit better manners towards other people when they're talking, so you can actually have a discussion about something like this rather than just attacking each other. So good job by Nick Shirley. Kind of surprised he agreed to go on Piers Morgan. He maybe didn't realize what was waiting for him when he went on there, but they treated him okay. But I thought he handled himself really well, and he did a good job giving his opinion. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. and I'll see you on the next video.